direction, but talking about regulations and how the future markets will be regulated. Now we have Davide Pettenella, who's a scientist, but on my side he deals with politics and economics, and he works at the Facoltà di Agraria of Università degli Studi di Padova. He's coordinated a working group at the ministry, and he's been chair of the forest stewardship for Italy. And this is the mark on sustainable forestry products. So he has less than 10 minutes. Over to you, Davide, to tell us something about the current situation and what we should expect from corporates in the future for those who have a palm oil-based supply chain. Thank you so much. Can you see the presentation properly? Yes, we can. Okay, great. I will give a short presentation of the new regulations on deforestation-free products using the findings of the research that I'm conducting with a number of collaborators from our department, Andreghetto and Masiero, and from the University of Padua spin-off, Elena Massaretti. Professor, we cannot hear you, says Maria Vincenza Kiriakou. Apologies. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear the professor now. Oh, apologies, and thank you so much. So, like I said, my presentation results from the work of the group that includes my colleagues, Andreghetto and Masiero, and colleagues of the spin-off of the university, including Elena Massaretti. There are 3 sections in my presentation: some background, and then the contents of this deforestation regulation from the EU, and to conclude, some open issues. Now, the role of the European Union is significant when it comes to importing raw materials that cause deforestation. It has been estimated at around 16%. This is the deforestation due to the imports of these raw materials, food and non-food included. This role has been fundamental in the past. It's waning. China is one of the main contributors to these problems, but worldwide, the European Union has severe responsibilities, and they are connected to a number of raw materials, but there's a certain concentration. 90% of deforestation caused by the imports by the 27 countries of the European Union is connected to 10 commodities, and 60% is connected to soybean, palm oil, and leather and cattle meat. And Italy has a fairly significant role with respect to this. And this role, in particular, is connected to the imports of wood products. You know that we are the main country for this, and then fresh cattle meat, soybean, coffee, cocoa, and palm oil. We are amongst the top 3 countries responsible for these phenomena. For this region, the European Union has made important initiatives as part of the general strategy of the Green Deal. It has promoted a number of sectoral plans and specific actions. And specifically, as regards the problem of third world countries, the deforestation, we have the strategy document, which is the European Union Forestry Strategy document, and we have a specific document analyzing the problems relating to the dependency of the European Union from third world countries. And finally, we have the EU regulation for deforestation, zero deforestation. So let's move on to take a look at the contents of this EUDR, taking account of the fact that it is part of a number of actions that the European Union is promoting for the forestry sector. The proposed regulation, the initial proposal made by the Commission, dates back to the month of November 2021, and quite obviously the goal is that of minimizing deforestation and achieve zero imports of products that cause deforestation and forestry decay. Initially, the European Commission proposed to work only on 6 products: meat, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, soybean, wood, and byproducts of raw wood. And how does the EU operate with this regulation? Well, it requires that these commodities, these important products, have a system of control of legality, and that they are legally documented as being products coming from third world countries that respect the regulations on sustainability in the use of land, and that they have a system of due diligence / traceability, allowing for the traceability of the product from the forest or from the field through to the final consumer. It establishes 2 categories of economic subjects / operators that have different responsibilities. First, the so-called operators and the traders. The traders are, commercial operators. So operators are those that introduce for the first time in the European Union the products that come from external areas or non-EU areas. And these operators, just like the traders, if they are SMEs, they are under the obligation of due diligence. Instead, those who only act as intermediaries have the obligation to retain the documentation on the traceability of the products. So, those who have this system of due diligence have to retain the documents on the legal origin of the products, which is not connected to deforestation and forest degradation caused by the products. And they also have to carry out a risk analysis for the country from which they import these commodities. So traceability and due diligence. These are the 2 main tools for implementing the regulation, and the regulation has not yet been finally approved. It has gone through several stages, so there's been the proposal of the Commission, this has been evaluated by the Council for the Environment, and recently it was evaluated by the European Parliament, which has given some suggestions for changing the regulation itself, and we are waiting for the final decision from the trilogy in some months. So we're gonna have the regulation up and running probably next year. So which are the modifications made or suggested by the Parliament to the original version? Well, the Parliament suggested to consider more themes, including the respect of the rights of the indigenous populations and the rights of use of the land by the local community. And very importantly, they proposed to broaden to many more products the initial implementation, not just cattle meat, but other types of meat. It has broadened the scope to palm oil byproducts. It has added new products like maize and other specific products that were not included before as forestry products, like rubber, charcoal, and printed paper, and so on. So, conclusions. I want to remind you that these interventions, regulatory interventions, pose big open questions or issues. Some are new and arise from the implementation of this regulation that is related most especially to the action of the European Union and of other Western countries. Similar regulations have been approved or are about to be approved by the USA, Japan, Australia, and other Western countries. So, according to me, there are three very important open questions or issues. So, this regulation imposes a mandatory procedure, and this procedure has a lot of bureaucracy. And multinational companies and big business that are well organized and have a good ESG profile will find it easy to deal with this bureaucracy. But quite obviously, it's more difficult for the SMEs, in particular those that produce in third world countries. And there is a risk that of creating a dualistic or dual market, an international market where certified and documented sustainable raw materials are put into the market from Western countries, and then there is an opposite market that may be bigger quantity-wise, that involves China and India with unqualified or non-qualified products. And the last open issue is the interactions that may arise between the instruments that have been there for a long time, and they've been added by NGOs and the civil society to certify and document the sustainable origin of these products on the one hand, and this regulation that certifies the quality of products. We have to bear this problem in mind. So the certification of legality and sustainability, we have to bear in mind previous investments, and also we have to bear in mind the fact that voluntary bottom-up initiatives from the civil society have been replaced by mandatory and bureaucratic procedures, which are top-down procedures. What really matters is the avenue we have to pursue. We all agree that we have to go for a qualification and control of internationally traded raw materials, and the problem is which are the best tools, the most adequate tools to be used. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Davide, one question. Since you have a privileged observatory and you have a privileged view, we have seen how the countries are reacting. What about the corporates? How do you expect them to react to these new constraints? Are you optimistic on the fact that will be somehow accepted and considered to be a step forward, or will corporates see this as an added cost and complexity? Well, it's so difficult to say. Economists have systematically been wrong with their forecasts over the last decades in every field of the economy. So I will not dare give you an answer, but like I said before, big business, large enterprises already have a good traceability system in-house. they are not so naive as not to control and check their suppliers, because they have to maintain their reputation, their value in the Western market. The problem is with SMEs, both importers in the EU and producers. We don't want to have a specialization. The previous speaker made a difference between large concessionaires and smallholders. So we wouldn't fix the problem. We in the Western world would think we have fixed the problem by importing controlled products coming from big business, from big European and Italian enterprises in the sector, and leaving the international trade and market to develop without control in order to supply Chinese and Indian consumers and consumers of other emerging countries. But that's a risk that we are faced with, and that, alas, entails an ability in terms of international coordination and dialogue in the proper international venues. But instead, we are seeing that international solidarity and this ability to have a common vision has been undermined by recent events that we all know so well. Thank you, Davide.